she tripped in front of the CEO. But what he did next made everyone gasp. And her heart race. She only wanted to be respected, but the moment she tripped in front of the CEO, and the entire boardroom laughed, Sophia knew she had just become a joke. What no one expected was what the CEO did next. He didn't laugh, he didn't look away. He stood, walked to her, and in front of everyone who dismissed her, he helped her up. That was the day everything changed, and it all started with a fall. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. Who gave the intern a speaking slot? She can barely stand straight. The comment wasn't whispered. It rang out sharp and clear across the grand glass conference room. A few nervous chuckles followed. One man even sipped his coffee to mask a smirk. Sofia Alvarez had just tripped. In front of the board, in front of a dozen senior executives, and right in front of Ethan Cole, the CEO of Cole & Winslow Industries, the kind of man whose gaze could silence a room. The impact had been quiet. Her knee barely grazed the carpet, but the silence that followed was thunderous. Her cue cards scattered like feathers across the floor. Her old nude heel twisted awkwardly beneath her. She didn't cry, not yet. But her cheeks burned in betrayal, her skin flushed from chin to forehead. Every molecule in her body begged to vanish. But then he stood up, not the man who mocked her, not her own department head who stared frozen and mortified. No, Ethan. He didn't bark orders, didn't sigh or glare or look away. He simply walked across the polished floor, kneeled gently beside her, and began collecting her cue cards, one by one, as if they were made of glass. "Miss Alvarez," he asked softly, his voice like warm slate, "are you all right?" Sophia blinked fast. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The scent of fresh cedar and subtle citrus clung to him, so clean, so different from her world of printer ink and cafeteria trays. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Shoes aren't everything," he said calmly, glancing once at her cracked heel. "But composure. You still have plenty of that left. Let's get you back on your feet." He extended his hand. Large, steady. There was a faint scar on one knuckle, the kind that told of life before boardrooms. Sophia took it. Gasps rippled across the room, not because of the fall, but because of what followed. He helped her up. Not the assistant, not security, the CEO himself. And when their hands parted, her blouse sleeve brushed against the smooth sleeve of his tailored suit, a contrast that said more than any apology could. From the corner, someone whispered, "Well, guess we know who HR will be talking about this afternoon." But Ethan didn't hear. Or if he did, he didn't care. "Let's give Miss Alvarez a moment," he said firmly, then turned to the board with a calm authority. 5-minute break, coffee's fresh. And just like that, he reset the room. 5 minutes later, Sophia sat in the corner of the company cafe, ankles crossed tight beneath a stool. Her dignity gathering itself in silence. She didn't belong here. That much was obvious. While others had arrived with stylists and designer pens, Sophia still used a plastic folder and wore her mother's silver necklace. A small, delicate piece with a leaf-shaped charm passed down after her death 2 years ago. She wore it like armor. "Excuse me," a voice said. She looked up, and her breath stalled again. Ethan stood there, holding 2 paper cups, one in each hand. "I wasn't sure if you liked tea or coffee," he said, offering both. "Coffee," she managed, taking the cup with both hands. "Thank you." He didn't sit. Just leaned slightly against the wall beside her, watching the steam rise from his own cup. "You handled that well," he said, without preamble. "I fell. You got back up." She stared at her cup. They were laughing. Some of them, but not all. He took a sip, and none of them were brave enough to present a pitch fresh out of the assistant pool. That speaks louder. Sophia looked up slowly. Why did you help me? The question left her lips before she could catch it. But to her surprise, he didn't seem offended. Because, he said simply, no one else did. A beat passed. He reached into his blazer and pulled out something small, a cue card she hadn't seen earlier. Folded slightly with a faint lipstick smudge near the edge. You dropped this one, he said. Had something underlined. Potential community impact, 47% engagement increase. That your stat? She nodded, hesitating. I ran the numbers twice. You sure? Positive. Ethan smiled. The kind of rare. Genuine curve that softened the steel in his features. Then let's hear the rest of your proposal tomorrow. Same room, no heels required. And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving her with coffee, a warm paper cup, and the weight of a promise she hadn't expected. Back in the office, gossip bloomed like ivy. Sophia knew it. She could feel it in the looks, the sudden silence when she entered a room. She was the girl who fell, the assistant who got special treatment. Rumors were inevitable, but something else followed too. A quiet tap on her desk at 4:15 p.m. It was Grace, one of the older women from logistics, bringing over a little Tupperware. Homemade empanadas, she whispered with a wink. You looked like you skipped lunch. Happens to the best of us, cariño. Sophia's eyes welled up again, but for a different reason this time. She smiled. Thank you, Grace. That means more than you know. Later, she took a bite, and for the first time all day, the knot in her chest eased. That night, as she walked home, heels in hand, flats on her feet, she passed the same boutique window she always avoided. Inside, mannequins wore suits that cost more than her monthly rent. But tonight, she stopped. She looked at the reflection staring back at her. Wrinkled blouse, mascara smudged in one corner, a silver leaf necklace gently resting over her collarbone. She didn't look powerful, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel small. She reached up, touched the charm softly, and smiled until her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. It's Ethan. I'm reviewing your deck. Can you come by my office at 8 a.m. sharp? I have a few questions. Sophia stared at the screen. His office? Alone? Before she could respond, another message came in. And bring the necklace. I want to ask about it. Her breath caught. How did he know it mattered? How did he even notice? And what did he mean by that? Sophia didn't sleep much. Her apartment, small but clean, smelled faintly of lavender and rain. She'd tried everything to calm her nerves, a chamomile tea, a warm bath, even rereading the sticky note from her mom taped to her mirror. Don't shrink. You come from women who sow sunlight into shadows. But her thoughts kept circling one thing. Bring the necklace. Why did he say that? By 6:45 a.m., she was already dressed, again in her best blouse, though it had a faint iron mark on one side now. She chose a clean gray cardigan to cover it. Her hair was tied back tighter than usual, her watch ticking louder than usual. She pressed her fingers to the necklace, a habit she didn't notice she had, and whispered, "Please don't let me mess this up." The building was quieter than she'd ever seen, most lights still off, cleaners moving like ghosts through the halls. The executive floor felt like another planet, high ceilings, art that didn't match anything, and carpets so thick they silenced even fear. When she reached the door marked Ethan Cole, CEO, she paused. Breathe. She knocked once, twice. Come in. His voice was calm, like always, but this time it felt softer. She stepped in and froze. The room was bathed in golden light. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and the sunrise cast a warm hue over everything. Ethan stood near the far corner in shirt sleeves, sipping from a black mug. Right on time, he said, not looking up immediately. Most execs don't manage that. I set 4 alarms. He looked at her then, his expression unreadable, but not unkind. "Coffee?" She nodded. He motioned toward the tray on the credenza. "Real porcelain cups, not paper." And he added, "I wasn't sure what you'd eaten, so I asked my assistant to bring something simple." Sophia turned and saw it, a small plate of pandesal, soft Filipino bread rolls, still warm. Wrapped in a linen cloth, next to it, guava jam in a tiny glass bowl. Her heart stuttered. How did you know?" He raised a brow. "You mentioned it once in the break room, said it reminded you of home." She blinked fast. She didn't even remember saying that. "Sit," he said gently. "Let's go over your proposal." They worked through the deck, slide by slide. Ethan didn't interrupt. He listened, really listened, pausing only to ask questions that made her think harder, deeper. He circled one figure and tapped his pen. "You included single mothers in the job growth projections. Why?" "My mom was one," she answered quietly. "She always said if someone just gave her a chance, she could carry more than anyone thought." Ethan leaned back, studying her. "And the necklace?" Sophia hesitated. "She gave it to me before her last surgery. Said it came from her mother. I wear it on important days." He nodded once. "Then keep wearing it." That was it. He didn't ask more, didn't push. Just let the moment settle. At 8:52 a.m., he stood up. "You've got strong instinct, Sophia. Don't let one fall make you doubt them." She rose too, gathering her notes. "Thank you for earlier and now." As she reached the door, he added, "The board meets again next week. You should present this, for real." Her hand froze on the doorknob. "I thought that was a one-time chance." "It was," he said, then shrugged lightly. "But so was mine. Someone gave me a second shot once. I'd be an idiot not to do the same." Sophia turned, smiling despite herself. "Then I hope I don't disappoint you." "You won't." Back at her desk, things felt different. No one laughed this time when she walked by. No one said anything out loud, but eyes followed her. 2 women from PR nodded politely. Someone from finance actually smiled. Then came the message. From Candace Rogers, HawkleyWinslow.com. Subject, lunch. Sophia opened it, confused. "Hey, you're the girl who fell. I say that with love. I once spilled soup on a CFO. Want to grab lunch today? You're way overdue for a friend upstairs. Candace Rogers, VP of Communications." She was known for her sharp tongue, bold lipstick, and never missing a beat in any rumor. Sophia typed back. "Sure, but I'm warning you. I eat like someone raised on leftover rice and soy sauce," Candace replied instantly. Perfect. I eat like someone with expensive taste and zero savings. 12:30. Bring that sparkly necklace." Sophia laughed. Really laughed. For the first time all week. At lunch, over kale wraps and sparkling water, courtesy of Candace, the woman leaned in and whispered, "You do know people are talking, right?" Sophia's smile faded. "I figured," Candace tilted her head. "Some are saying you faked the fall to get his attention." "What?" "Others say you're his cousin's daughter, that you're getting fast-tracked." "I didn't," Sophia sat straighter. "That's not true." "I believe you," Candace said, sipping her drink. "But just so you know, not everyone wants to." That night, Sophia stared at her phone again, hesitating. Should she text Ethan, say thank you, ask what to do? Instead, she opened her mom's old notebook, the one with hand-sewn corners, and wrote, "When you finally feel seen, you start to remember who you are." She closed the book, looked in the mirror, and tucked the necklace under her blouse, close to her skin. Tomorrow she'd hold her head higher, but the next morning, everything shifted again. She arrived at her desk at 8:05 a.m., and sitting there, waiting like a snake curled in sunlight, was Margot, Ethan's ex and head of special accounts. Lips red, eyes colder than glass, smile like a blade. "Well," Margot said, tapping Sophia's proposal with one manicured nail, "you've certainly made an impression." Sophia tried to keep her voice steady. Can I help you with something?" "Oh, darling," Margot purred, standing and leaning close. "I'm just here to make sure you know the rule. Around here, girls who climb too fast usually fall again." Then she winked and walked away. Sophia didn't breathe until Margot was out of sight. The scent she left behind lingered like bergamot and iced roses. A rich woman's perfume, a woman who never had to trip to be noticed. Sophia sank into her chair. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her cardigan. One thing was clear. Margot wasn't curious. She was warning her, and not the kind of warning that came from kindness. The morning dragged in slow motion after that. Every email seemed louder, every glance heavier. Even her favorite mug, the chipped one that said "just keep sipping," didn't make the coffee taste right. At 10:12 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Ethan, free at noon? I want your input on a partnership file. Bring lunch." She read it twice. Was this routine or something else? She typed back, "Of course, I'll bring something decent, not office tuna." His reply came fast. "Bring what you'd bring to someone who's had a bad morning?" That made her stop. He had a bad morning? Was that possible for people like him? At exactly 12:01, she knocked on his office door again, this time holding 2 covered bowls and a nervous smile. He opened the door himself, and he looked different. The usual polished exterior was there. Navy shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, top button undone, but his hair was messier, and there was something in his eyes, like he'd been arguing with someone or thinking too hard. "Hey," he said, stepping aside, "smells like real food." She walked in, carefully setting the containers down on the coffee table by the window. "I brought a roast caldo." "It's like chicken porridge, but magic." He raised an eyebrow. "Magic?" "Cures heartbreak, headaches, even Mondays. My mom used to say it was the reason I passed every exam." Ethan actually smiled, the tiredness in his face easing a little. "Then I'm honored." They sat, and for a few minutes they just ate. The city buzzed beyond the windows, but inside the room it was strangely quiet, familiar. He took one bite, then another. "You made this?" "I did, last night. Cooking helps me think." He didn't speak right away, but when he did, it was low. Margot came by earlier. Sophia paused mid-spoonful. "She came by my desk this morning." His gaze snapped to hers. "What did she say?" "Nothing direct," Sophia answered carefully. "But I think she wanted to remind me I'm not exactly welcome." Ethan sighed, and not the composed, rehearsed kind. This one was human. Heavy. "I'm sorry," he said. "She's complicated." "You were together?" "For a long time," he admitted. Looking out the window. "She helped build this company in the early years. She knows how things work here. That's both a strength and a weapon." "And you two ended on bad terms?" He hesitated. "Not publicly, but she doesn't like surprises. And you—" He paused, looked at her. "You were a surprise." Sophia's heart flipped, not in a romantic way. Not yet. It was deeper. It meant, "You matter enough to disrupt something." "I'm not trying to climb," she said softly. "I just want to do good work, and maybe stop falling in public." That made him laugh. A real one. Then something shifted. His eyes dropped to her necklace. "You always wear that?" "Yes." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about her, your mom." So Sophia told him about how her mother used to sew dresses at night while watching old telenovelas, about how she once turned a ripped curtain into a prom dress, how she always said dignity wasn't about money. It was about showing up even when you felt small. Ethan listened, really listened. And when Sophia finished, he looked at the charm again. "I like that you still carry her." She smiled. "Some days she's the only thing that keeps me standing." "Not the shoes?" They both laughed. And just like that, the moment softened. For a second, they were just two people eating homemade food in a skyscraper office. pretending they weren't from opposite worlds. Then the phone rang. He didn't answer, just glanced at the caller ID and let it go to voicemail. Sophia stood. "I should go." "Stay," he said, "just one more bite." She sat back down, unsure why that sounded so much like a whisper, and just as she picked up her spoon again, the door opened. No knock, no warning. Margot. In red heels and a tailored dress, eyes sharp as ever. "Oh," she said, voice honey smooth but hard underneath. "Did I interrupt something?" Sophia stood again, this time too quickly, nearly knocking over the bowls. "I was just leaving," she said, reaching for her bag. But Margot stepped forward. "Actually," she said sweetly, "why don't you stay a moment? I was just telling Ethan we're hosting the annual strategic dinner next week." She turned to Ethan. "You know, the one where only department heads are invited?" He nodded slowly. "I remember." Margot smiled at Sophia now, too warm to be friendly. "Well, darling, it must be hard being on the outside of all that, but don't worry. If you keep making soup, maybe someone will bring leftovers." Ethan's jaw tensed. "Margot." But Sophia was already gathering her things, cheeks burning. She smiled, but it was the quiet kind, the kind you wear like armor. "I hope the dinner's lovely," she said, brushing past. And just before the door closed, she heard Margot say, "You should be careful, Ethan. They'll start saying you're playing favorites again." Sophia didn't cry in the elevator. She waited until she was out on the street, walking quickly through the cold wind that rushed between the buildings like whispers too fast to catch. Her chest burned, not from anger, not even from shame, but from something quieter, deeper, a kind of hollow ache. "They'll start saying you're playing favorites again." Margot hadn't needed to raise her voice, just loud enough for it to land, for it to linger. The words clung to Sophia's skin long after she left the building. She walked 3 extra blocks without realizing it, until the familiar scent of fresh bread drew her into a tiny Filipino cafe nestled between a flower shop and a laundromat. The sign outside was faded. Inside, it was warm. No one looked twice at her there. That was what she needed. She sat in a booth by the window and ordered a bowl of sinigang, sour tamarind broth, slow cooked with pork and eggplant and string beans, her favorite comfort food, the kind her mother used to make after a long week, humming old Tagalog lullabies while stirring the pot like it was sacred. When it arrived steaming and slightly too salty, Sophia wrapped her hands around the bowl and stared into it for a moment before taking a bite. The first spoonful hit her heart before her stomach. Her eyes stung, but she blinked quickly. Not here. A voice interrupted, familiar, kind. "Room for one more?" She looked up. Grace, from logistics, the woman who once brought her homemade empanadas with a wink and no questions. Sophia gestured to the empty seat. "Please, I could use the company." Grace sat, peeling off her scarf and pulling a slightly crushed paper bag from her purse. "I brought lumpia. Still warm, if you pretend hard enough." They both chuckled. Grace opened the bag and laid out 2 crispy rolls. "You're saving me," Sophia said, managing a small smile. "I forgot breakfast. Again." They ate in silence for a few minutes, the way only 2 women who understand exhaustion can. Then Grace looked at her, serious now. "I heard what happened upstairs." Sophia's stomach twisted. "Word travels fast." "Faster than facts," Grace muttered. "But I don't care what anyone's saying." "You looked that woman in the eye and walked out standing tall." Sophia lowered her spoon. "It didn't feel that way." Grace leaned forward, her voice softening. "You remind me of someone, my daughter. She tried to climb through a world that was never designed for women like us. She thought if she worked hard enough, it would be enough." Sophia blinked. "What happened to her?" "She moved to Canada, works in tech now, wears hoodies and doesn't answer my texts." Grace smiled. "But she taught me something. When people can't unsee your light, they'll try to shade it." Sophia was quiet, then said, "Margot said things in front of him." "Ethan." I didn't know what to say. I just wanted to disappear. Grace reached across the table, brushing her finger gently over the silver leaf on Sophia's necklace. "She gave you this?" she asked. Sophia nodded. "Right before her last surgery. She said, 'Wear this when you feel small. It'll remind you that I know better.'" Grace's eyes softened. "Then wear it proudly, Mija. And don't you dare shrink. The world needs more women who carry dignity like armor." That evening, Sophia stayed late at the office. She told herself it was to polish data, prep slides, cross-check reports. But really, she didn't want to go home with her self-worth still in pieces. At 8:12 p.m., she passed Ethan's office. His light was on. She hesitated, just for a moment, then kept walking. "Sophia," she stopped. His voice, steady, quiet, almost tired. She turned. "I was just finishing up," she said. He stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, no tie. He looked different. Like he hadn't slept well. There was a stillness in his eyes she hadn't seen before. "Come in," he said gently. She stepped inside, unsure what she was stepping into. "I owe you an apology," he said, walking toward the coffee table, where 2 cold mugs still sat untouched. "For what? For letting her talk to you that way?" "For not saying something sooner?" Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. "You don't control what people say." "I could have controlled the moment," he said, "and I didn't. That's on me." She didn't know what to say. Then softly, "I'm not your responsibility. You're part of this company. That makes you my responsibility." That made her heart ache in a new way. She swallowed. "Why does she hate me?" "She doesn't," Ethan said after a pause. "She hates losing control. You showed up, fell in front of a room full of executives, and still got back up. That's more threatening than you think." Sophia laughed under her breath. "All I wanted was to be invisible." He stepped closer. "Well," he said, his voice low, "you failed." She looked up, startled, and for one breathless moment there was a silence between them, so full of something, unspoken, maybe dangerous, it made her forget the air in her lungs. He looked down at her necklace. "She'd be proud of you," Sophia's voice cracked. "You think so? I know so." She opened her mouth to speak. Knock. They both turned. Melanie from HR stepped in, all business, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said flatly, "but we've received a formal complaint about perceived favoritism." Ethan's face hardened. "From who?" "I'm not permitted to say, but until we resolve this, I would advise you both to maintain professional distance." Melanie glanced once at Sophia, then back at Ethan, then left. Sophia stood frozen. "So it's real," she whispered. He didn't say anything. "I think I'll work from home tomorrow," she said, already backing toward the door. "Sophia!" She turned, one hand on the knob. "For the record," she said without looking back, "you didn't make me uncomfortable." Then she was gone, and Ethan was left alone in the glow of the city lights, holding a silence that tasted far too much like regret. Sophia didn't touch her laptop until noon. It sat there, cold and silent on her kitchen table, like a guest she hadn't invited. She kept pacing around it, folding the same dish towel twice, refilling a cup of tea she barely drank, watering the plant in the corner that wasn't even real. When she finally sat down, she opened her email only to be met with an avalanche. Subject lines like "following up," "status needed," "redeliverables" blinked back at her like warnings. One message from Margot was so drenched in professional tone, it made Sophia feel like she'd done something illegal just by breathing. So she shut it all, closed the lid, and stared out the window, clutching the delicate silver leaf pendant hanging from her neck. It had always felt like armor. Today it felt like a question. Why am I still trying? Her phone buzzed quietly beside the cold tea. It was a new email from Candace Rogers, GaulWinslow.com. Subject, "For when you come back, Sophia blinked. Candace! She opened the message, her heartbeat picking up like it knew something she didn't. Hey, troublemaker, the office is dull without you. Also, rumor is Margot's slamming doors again, which means you've made a dent in her glossed-up world. Congrats. You didn't hear this from me, but someone filed for an internal review of the complaint. HR has to prove perceived favoritism with actual evidence. In case no one said it out loud, some of us are watching your back. You've earned your seat at the table. Don't let them convince you otherwise. Take the time you need, but don't disappear. See. Sophia stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time that day, she smiled. Not a polite, passing smile, but one that came from deep in her chest. One that reminded her she wasn't alone. Someone had noticed, and they cared enough to speak up. Candace Rogers, the queen of red lipstick and boardroom banter, had just extended something rare. Sisterhood. At 2:07 p.m., her phone buzzed again. Private number. She almost didn't answer, but something told her to. Hello? Sophia? A warm, familiar voice said. It's Grace. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. Sophia sat up straighter. No, not at all. Is everything okay? Grace chuckled softly. You left your number on the empanada container, remember? Sophia blushed. I forgot. I didn't, Grace said kindly. I was wondering. I have some arroz con leche. Too much for one. Would you mind a visit? There was a pause. Sophia could have said no, could have pretended she was too busy, too tired, too broken, but instead she said, yes, I'd love that. 20 minutes later, Grace was seated on her modest couch, a warm bowl in hand, wearing an oversized cardigan, and the kind of calm that only came from surviving life without apology. Sophia sat beside her, cradling her own bowl, feeling like the child she hadn't allowed herself to be in years. You know, Grace began, stirring the rice pudding gently. Margot wasn't always that way. Sophia looked up. She used to smile, used to bring in cookies for the team, but power, it makes some people forget how to be soft. Sophia nodded. She looked at me like I was a threat, and I'm just me, Grace smiled. Exactly. That's what scares her. You don't play the game. You just show up, and you shine without asking permission. I didn't mean to, Sophia whispered. Doesn't matter, you did. And he saw it. Sophia swallowed hard. Ethan? Grace nodded. He's a good man. Quiet, but observant. Maybe a little too careful. People are saying things. They'll always say things. But here's what matters. Grace leaned in and gently touched the silver leaf at Sophia's collarbone. This is your route, your reminder. Let their noise be noise. You've got work to do, and people who see you for who you are. Sophia blinked fast, eyes stinging. Thank you, she whispered. Grace stood, setting her empty bowl down. Any time, and when you're ready to come back, walk in like the floor was built for you. That night, the sky outside Sophia's apartment turned lavender gray. She opened her window just wide enough to feel the breeze, her fingers wrapped gently around her pendant. The city moved on, people going to dinner, lights flickering on in nearby buildings, taxis honking. And yet, for the first time in days, she didn't feel lost inside it. She felt still. Her phone buzzed. A text. Ethan Cole. Did you get the envelope? Sophia's heart skipped. What envelope? Another text arrived, a photo, her breath caught. It was a note, folded, handwritten in deep blue ink on company letterhead. Sophia, you don't owe anyone an explanation for being noticed. You earned your place. Let no one tell you otherwise. And beside it, taped gently to the paper, was the silver leaf pendant, lying flat, identical to the one that hung around her neck. She gasped. Her hand flew to her necklace. The chain was there, but the charm, the actual leaf, was gone. She hadn't even noticed it was missing. Her fingers trembled. He'd found it, saved it, and never said a word. He hadn't handed it to her in front of anyone, hadn't made a show. He just waited. and left it quietly for her to find. She stared at the photo for what felt like hours, then typed, "You didn't have to do that." His reply came instantly. "I know, but I wanted to." Another pause, then, "Some things deserve to be returned to the right hands." She felt her heart stutter. For once, the silence between them wasn't awkward. It wasn't heavy. It was something warm, open. A door left slightly ajar. Later that night, when she found the envelope waiting at her door, the silver leaf pendant was really there, taped flat to the note, just like in the photo. She held it for a long moment before quietly fastening it back onto her necklace. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Sophia adjusted her blouse collar 3 times before the doors even opened on the 18th floor. Her heart wasn't racing. It was pacing, like a cat deciding whether to fight or flee. Her flats clicked softly against the marble tiles as she stepped back into the office building that suddenly felt sharper. Brighter, louder. Eyes followed her before voices did. Some glanced up, then quickly back down to their screens. Others held her gaze for a beat too long. A few offered tight, polite nods. And 1 or 2, the ones who liked Margot just a bit too much, didn't hide their whispers behind coffee mugs. She walked past them all with the kind of quiet dignity that can't be taught, only earned. Her necklace was back in place. The silver leaf caught the light as she moved, like a tiny flag of resilience. She reached her desk, exhaled slowly, and sat down. And that's when she noticed it. On her chair was a small card. Cream-colored, folded, tucked beneath a mint tin. She opened it. The room always shifts when someone stands taller. "Welcome back. C. Candace." Sophia smiled. The queen of sarcasm had spoken, and Sophia heard it loud and clear. "You're not alone." At 11:00 a.m., Sophia was called into the main conference room. The moment she walked in, the air changed, subtle, but real. Ethan was at the head of the table. Margot, seated at his left, offered the kind of smile that was so polished it no longer resembled kindness. On his right sat Trevor from finance, 2 people from strategy, and, to Sophia's surprise, Candace. "Miss Alvarez," Ethan said calmly, gesturing to the seat at the far end. "Join us." Sophia paused, then walked in with steady steps. Margot's eyes followed her every move, cold, controlled, measuring. Sophia didn't look away. The seat at the end wasn't the best in the room, but it was at the table. That mattered more than location. Ethan clicked his pen and looked down at his notes. "Before we begin today's partner review, I'd like to recognize the work Sophia completed on the Lonsdale Community Initiative last quarter. Some of you may not know she compiled the data, built the engagement model, and structured the outreach timeline." He looked around the table, eyes sharp. "And it produced a 47% increase in community response, without a formal team behind her." There was a long silence. Then Candace clapped. Once, then again. And slowly the room followed. Margot didn't clap, but she also didn't speak. And that somehow was louder. After the meeting, Sophia walked back to her desk, feeling something she hadn't felt in days. Steady. She sat down, just as her email dinged. From Ethan Cole. That was overdue. She didn't respond right away. She just sat there, fingers resting lightly on the keyboard, heart surprisingly calm. At lunch, Sophia wandered to the 14th floor balcony, a spot rarely used, tucked beside the old archives room. It had a bench, a crooked umbrella, and a view that wasn't spectacular, but it was hers. She unpacked a small container of chicken adobo and jasmine rice she'd made the night before. Simple, humble, familiar. 5 minutes later, footsteps approached. She looked up. "Candace." "I knew I'd find you here," she said, plopping down beside Sophia and stealing a spoonful without asking. Sophia laughed. "You didn't even—" "Girl, this is survival food," Candace said, savoring the bite. "You cook like you mean it." They ate side by side for a while. "You were brilliant in there," Candace said, gesturing toward the sky. Margot didn't even blink. That's how you know she's rattled. I didn't do anything. Exactly. That's what makes it worse for her. Sophia turned toward her. Why are you helping me? Candace took a sip of her sparkling water, then looked out over the city. Because I remember what it was like, being the youngest woman in the room, being underestimated, being called lucky instead of prepared. Sophia nodded slowly. Then Candace added, and because, frankly, you make this place more honest. Sophia didn't know what to say. So she passed her a second spoon. By 5 p.m., the gossip had changed tones. People still whispered, but now it was about the applause, the praise, the numbers. Someone in HR even smiled at her near the printer. And as she gathered her things to leave, an unexpected visitor appeared at her desk. Trevor from finance, polished, charming, and usually too self-important to say hello. Hey, he said. Sophia, right? She nodded, cautious. I wanted to ask, that model you built for Lonsdale, could you walk me through your outreach logic sometime this week? Sophia blinked. Sure, I'd be happy to. Cool, he said. Congrats, by the way. You deserve the recognition. And then he walked off. A harmless conversation. But 20 minutes later, the tone shifted again. Candace came storming up to her desk, lips pursed. Be careful, she said under her breath. Trevor doesn't talk to anyone unless he's either trying to steal a project or sabotage a promotion. Sophia frowned. He just asked about Lonsdale. Exactly, Sophia paused. Why would he? Candace leaned closer. Because Margot doesn't like losing control. And Trevor? He's always looking for someone to trade loyalty for advancement. Sophia's blood ran cold. What do I do? Candace smiled. You let him ask, and then you watch what he does with the information. Sophia hesitated, then looked down at her necklace. The leaf glinted in the low light, a reminder to stand tall, not shrink. That night, her phone buzzed again. Ethan Cole. You looked like yourself today. Sophia stared at the message, then typed, What does that mean? His reply came a moment later. It means you looked like someone who knew she belonged. She sat in silence, rereading those words, then typed, I'm still figuring that part out. Ethan, let me know if you want company on the way. Sophia, home? Ethan, no, forward. The following morning, Sophia arrived at her desk with a sticky knot in her stomach. Something about Trevor's sudden interest still itched at her. He'd emailed her late the night before asking for a copy of the original Lonsdale data for alignment purposes. His wording was polite, but vague, the kind that could mean anything or nothing. By 9:03 a.m., her fingers were already cold on the keyboard. At 9:17, she received the calendar invite. Partner review, Lonsdale expansion proposal, live model walkthrough. Host, T. Robinson location, executive boardroom time. Today, 11:30 a.m., she blinked hard. He was putting her model in front of the entire executive board, without warning, without context, and without her permission. She walked to the balcony where she'd eaten with Candace the day before. Alone now, she stood gripping the railing, the wind catching the edges of her blouse, her mind racing. This felt deliberate. It was too polished to be spontaneous, too well-timed after Ethan's public recognition. Let him ask, and then watch what he does with the information. Candace's words echoed louder now. And then she remembered something her mother once said, seated behind a sewing machine late at night. When someone pulls the thread on your dignity, don't hand them the scissors. Sophia took a deep breath, pulled out her phone, and texted someone she hadn't expected to rely on again so soon. To Ethan Cole. Are you attending the 11:30 with Trevor? A minute later, his response came. Yes, why? I think he's about to present my model, uncredited. Another pause, then, stay calm, come, sit at the table. 11:30 a.m. sharp. Sophia entered the executive boardroom, again, this time she didn't trip. She wore navy slacks, a crisp white blouse, and the silver necklace tucked just beneath the collar, as if resting against her skin like a quiet vow. Trevor stood at the front, projecting confidence in every motion. He clicked through slides rapidly, tossing out words like efficiency model, restructured outreach, original projections, like he'd spent years perfecting them. Sophia sat 3 seats down from Ethan. He didn't look at her, but he knew she was there. Margot, seated across the table, appeared amused. She never looked directly at Sophia, but every so often her eyes flicked toward Trevor like a conductor nudging her soloist. Finally, at slide 6, Trevor paused. And as we can see, this is projected to lift regional engagement by 47% in just 2 quarters. We believe this is a scalable model across additional community branches. He leaned on the edge of the table, confident. But before anyone could speak, Ethan raised his hand, slowly, deliberately. "Quick question." "Trevor?" "Of course." "Could you walk us through how you calculated the 47% projection?" Trevor blinked. Well, the model was run using current growth trends and—" He paused. Ethan tilted his head slightly. "That figure matches something I've seen before, very specifically, in a deck sent to me by Sofia Alvarez." The room fell silent. Candace leaned back in her chair with an invisible smile. Trevor's lips parted. Yes, I did consult her notes." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Consult or duplicate?" Margot cut in smoothly. "I believe Trevor meant he cross-referenced team resources." "No," Ethan said quietly but firmly. "This is not cross-referencing. This is misrepresentation." He turned now, really turned, and looked at Sophia. "Miss Alvarez, are you familiar with this slide?" Sophia's hands were cold, but her voice was steady. "Yes, I built that model. Every projection, every touch point. It was mine." Ethan nodded. "Noted. Please ensure credit is corrected immediately." The meeting moved on, but the air had shifted. And this time, the room wasn't laughing. Later that afternoon, Sophia sat alone in the downstairs cafe, trying to breathe through the adrenaline still buzzing in her body. She wasn't sure whether to cry, laugh, or collapse into a nap. Then someone slid into the seat across from her. Ethan. He set down 2 cups, coffee for her, tea for him. "I figured you'd be here," he said. She smiled, weary but real. "Did you really not know he was presenting my work?" He shook his head. "Not until this morning. I requested all department briefs. His came in last, sloppy copy-paste." Sophia took a sip. "Thank you for saying something." "You didn't need saving," Ethan said. "You just needed the room to hear you." A beat. "Still," she added, "I almost didn't come." "Then I'm glad you did." He looked at her then, a softness behind his eyes that she hadn't seen before. "You shouldn't have to fight for a seat at a table you built." She glanced down at her necklace. "My mom once said, dignity isn't loud. It's what you keep holding when people try to take it." Ethan's gaze followed hers. She was right. And then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small envelope. Handwritten, no logo. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single slip of paper with 4 words. "You weren't invisible today." Her breath caught. She looked at him. He didn't smile, but his eyes did. "I had that written before the meeting," he said softly. Her voice trembled. "Why?" "Because I knew what they were planning. But I also knew what you were capable of." Sophia stared down at the note again. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was quiet, intentional, and deeply seen. Back upstairs, as Sophia packed up her laptop for the day, an internal message flashed across her screen. From Margot Lancaster at colewinslow.com, subject, "Concerning conduct? Let's chat tomorrow, privately, just you and me." Monsieur Sophia read it twice, then once more. The words were simple, but the tone? It wasn't curiosity, it was strategy. Sophia read it once, then again, It wasn't the words themselves, it was their stillness. The calm tone wrapped around something colder, tighter, a velvet glove over something sharp. She didn't reply, but she didn't delete it either. The next morning, Sophia arrived early. Too early. She sat at her desk, fingers hovering over the keys, her mind racing through every version of what Margot might want. Another warning? A threat? A warning pretending to be kindness? Candace passed by at 9:45 and paused, eyeing her closely. "You okay?" Sophia nodded, but it was the kind of nod that meant, "Please don't ask me more right now." Candace didn't push. "Text me when you're done," she said quietly but firmly, no matter what she says. At exactly 10 a.m., Sophia stood outside conference room 3B, a rarely used space tucked between archives and legal. The door had frosted glass and a soft hum from the flickering light above, the kind of room where people said things they didn't want documented. She knocked once. "Come in." Margot's voice was smooth even, and a little too casual. Sophia opened the door and stepped inside. To her surprise, the setup was oddly intimate. 2 chairs, a small table, 2 ceramic mugs of coffee already poured, and a tiny bowl of olives between them, the expensive kind with garlic and rosemary. Margot didn't look up right away. She was scrolling through her phone. "Close the door, please," Sophia did. Margot finally looked up. Her lipstick, as always, was perfect. Today, a matte plum. "Sit," Sophia sat. They looked at each other for a moment, not with malice, but like 2 people trying to read a page the other one had written in pencil. "I'm going to be direct," Margot began. "We don't have to like each other. But I think it's time we stopped pretending." Sophia didn't reply. Margot sipped her coffee. "I don't care that Ethan likes you." Sophia's fingers tensed in her lap. Margot saw it. "I don't mean romantically," she said, waving a hand, "though I'm sure the whispers will spin it that way. I mean, he listens to you. He values your thinking, your voice. That's what bothers me." Sophia blinked. "I didn't ask him to." "I know," Margot said, her tone cooling. "That's what makes it worse." It wasn't said in anger, more like exhaustion. She picked up an olive, rolled it gently between her fingers. "I was there when this company barely had furniture. I fired people in bathrooms, built $1-million partnerships out of cafe meetings. Ethan and I, we were more than colleagues, less than lovers, but deeply entangled." A pause. "He doesn't look at me like that anymore." Sophia's throat tightened, but she stayed quiet. "I've watched women like you walk in. Smart, honest, fresh-eyed, and I've seen what this place does to them. Either you get wise, or you get gone." Margot finally looked Sophia dead in the eyes. "I thought you'd be gone." Sophia stared back, voice quiet. "I almost was." Margot nodded once. "I tried to make you crack. I wanted the whispers to crush you. I wanted Ethan to forget you, but instead, you kept showing up." She reached into a folder and slid a thin stack of papers across the table. Sophia looked down. The header stopped her breath for half a second. "Lonsdale Phase 2, Joint Project Ownership Proposal, prepared by M. Lancaster." "What is this?" she asked, fingers frozen. "A test," Margot said simply. "You want to be more than the intern who tripped and somehow rose from it? You want respect that sticks? You co-lead with me." Sophia stared at the folder. "Why me?" "Because I'm tired," Margot said, leaning back. "Because I see what Ethan sees, and because if I'm going to hand this off one day, I want it to be to someone who knows exactly how sharp this world is." Sophia raised her chin. "And if I say no? Then you stay where you are, adored, impressive, but peripheral, never invited behind the curtain." Sophia closed the folder gently. "You spent weeks trying to tear me down," Margot nodded. "That was before I saw you survive." They sat in silence again, only the flickering light buzzing faintly above them. "I won't be your puppet," Sophia said quietly. Margot's smile was thin but not cruel. I wouldn't insult you by asking." Then she reached across the table and tapped the edge of the folder. "Ah, when you decide who you want to become, let me know." Sophia took the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding. She needed air. She needed her. Up on the rooftop balcony, the wind hit her face like a clean reset. She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She opened the folder again. Joint leadership. Co-credit, budget access. It was real. It was risky. She held her silver leaf necklace between 2 fingers and closed her eyes. Her mother's voice came back in the wind. Dignity doesn't mean saying no to power. It means knowing when to say yes and mean it. At 3:22 p.m., her phone buzzed. "Ethan. HR update. The complaint was withdrawn. Investigation closed." Sophia exhaled slowly, finally. Some part of her name was no longer questioned. Another buzz. "But there's something else. Can we talk? I think you deserve to hear it from me first." Sophia stared at the screen, then typed, "I'm listening." The sun was starting to dip when Sophia made her way up to the executive floor. The halls were quieter at this hour, the kind of quiet that made every footstep sound more important than it was. She'd taken the stairs, not because the elevator was broken, but because she needed those extra breaths. The climb helped her think, or maybe delay. She stopped outside Ethan's office. The door was slightly open. He was standing behind his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loosened like he'd tried to end the day hours ago but never got the chance. The light outside the window stretched across the floor like honey on tile, golden, fading, and too honest to ignore. He looked up. "You came?" he said. "I wasn't sure I would," Sophia replied, stepping in. "I wasn't sure I deserved it." That made her pause. He didn't gesture for her to sit. She didn't ask permission. She took the chair across from him like it was hers, not as a guest, but as someone who had earned it. There was a pause before he spoke. "I've been thinking about what you said, about silence." Sophia tilted her head. "And what about it?" "I wore mine like armor," Ethan said. "I thought if I stayed neutral, it meant I was being fair. But really, I was just afraid of what would happen if I chose a side." Sophia crossed her arms. "So, you didn't? I thought I was protecting you." "No," she said, voice quiet but firm. "You were protecting yourself, and that's not the same thing." He flinched, but he didn't deny it. "I kept waiting for the storm to pass," he admitted. "But it never does it?" "No," Sophia said. "It just changes direction." She reached into her blouse and touched her necklace, the silver leaf pendant her mother gave her before her last surgery. She didn't even realize she'd done it until she felt it between her fingers. "I didn't file the complaint," Ethan said suddenly. Sophia nodded. "I know. But I knew who did. Trevor." A pause. "And I asked him to withdraw it." Her hands tightened slightly around the necklace. "You asked?" "I didn't threaten him. But I made it clear that lying has consequences, and that I don't promote cowards." Sophia exhaled. "You could have told me that sooner." "I could have told you a lot of things sooner," Ethan said, "but I didn't know if I had the right." Sophia looked up at him. "And now?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I know this. I've been running a company full of people I barely see, and then you walked in, and suddenly I couldn't look away." The room went still, not romantic, not yet. But something cracked open. "You want to know why I didn't defend you sooner?" he asked, voice lower now. "Because I knew the minute I stood up for you in public, people would assume the worst. That I was trading something for attention," she said, not flinching. He nodded. "Exactly. But you knew that wouldn't be true." "I did," he said, "and I let fear win." Sophia stood slowly. "You know what I have learned here, Mr. Cole?" He raised an eyebrow, the formal name not lost on him. She stepped closer, not aggressively, but with the quiet gravity of a woman who had survived something silently. "That I don't have to be grateful for being seen, that I don't have to shrink to be safe. that kindness isn't weakness, and respect isn't optional. He looked at her like she'd just told him the truth he should have always known. She pulled the necklace over her head, gently, like it carried something fragile, and placed it in his hand. "I've worn this through every meeting, every insult, every time someone looked past me." Ethan opened his hand and stared down at the silver leaf, small and light, but somehow heavy with meaning. "Yad, why are you giving it to me?" "Because I want you to remember what it costs to carry dignity, and because I think it's time you felt the weight of it for yourself." Ethan looked up, moved in a way he couldn't quite hide. "I don't want to let it go," he said. "Then don't," she said softly. "Just don't wear it like a shield. Carry it like a mirror." Another pause. He stepped closer now, not reaching for her, just standing within her breath. "I don't know what this is," he said. Us." "Neither do I," Sophia replied. "But maybe it doesn't need to be defined yet." He searched her eyes. "What happens now?" "I make my own move," she said, nodding toward the folder Margot had given her. "And I decide what kind of seat I want at this table." "And me?" he asked. Sophia smiled. "Not sweet, not cold, real. You get to decide if you're brave enough to sit beside me." She turned and walked toward the door, heart pounding, thoughts loud but clear. As she opened it, Margot stood there, holding a thin envelope. They locked eyes. "I see you had your meeting," Margot said. Sophia didn't answer. "I'm not here to start anything," Margot added. "I just wanted to give you this." She handed Sophia the envelope. Inside was a single note, neatly written. Unsigned. "You've been underestimated. That's your advantage. Use it." Sophia looked up. "Why are you doing this?" "Because," Margot said, brushing past her, "I know what it's like to be the girl no one bets on." Sophia didn't wear the necklace the next day. It was the first time in nearly 2 years she'd left her apartment without it. Her collarbone felt strangely bare, exposed, like a lighthouse without its light, still standing, still strong, but quieter. She'd left it in Ethan's hands, let him carry its weight for a while. Instead, she wore a sharp cream blazer and soft slate trousers, nothing flashy, but deliberate. Today, she wasn't just returning to work. Today, she was stepping into a new role, not by invitation, but by choice. At 10 a.m., the executive team gathered in Conference Room 1, the same room where she'd once fallen to her knees and scrambled to collect her cue cards. This time, she walked in with her head high. At the long glass table sat Ethan, Candace, Margot, Trevor, and the new CFO. The only empty seat was beside Margot. Sophia didn't hesitate. She took it. There were murmurs, glances exchanged. Candace gave her a small nod, or more like a salute. Ethan didn't look at her directly, but his fingers grazed something inside his pocket. She knew what it was, the leaf. He'd brought it with him. The meeting began. Margot cleared her throat. "We're here to review Phase 2 of the Lonsdale Initiative. As you all know, I've submitted a joint leadership proposal." Trevor shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't spoken to Sophia since the HR complaint had been mysteriously withdrawn. His smile today was forced, like someone trying to blend into wallpaper. "As part of that proposal," Margot continued, "I'd like to formally introduce my co-lead, Sophia Alvarez." There was a pause, the kind that meant she really said it out loud. Ethan leaned forward, finally speaking. "You've both agreed to this?" Margot turned to Sophia. "Your answer?" All eyes on her, but for the first time, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like presence. Sophia folded her hands over her notes. "I've considered the offer, carefully." Candace raised an eyebrow, smiling behind her hand. Sophia continued, "And I'll accept the co-lead role under one condition. That I maintain final say over all community-facing initiatives." Margot blinked, not in protest, in surprise. She hadn't expected terms. Sophia smiled politely. "Shared leadership doesn't mean silence. It means structure." Ethan looked at her now, and he smiled just a little. The others glanced around, waiting for Margot's reaction. After a long pause, Margot gave a nod. Agreed. Candace leaned toward Sophia and whispered, "Well played." Later that afternoon, the hallway buzzed like it always did after major meetings, half gossip, half caffeine. Sophia stepped into the break room to breathe. Alone. But not for long. Margot entered, holding a bottle of water, posture sharp as ever. Sophia didn't move. Margot broke the silence. "You did well today." "You too," Sophia replied, voice level. "Even when you lost control of the narrative." Margot chuckled softly. "I didn't lose it. I handed it off." That surprised her. "I used to believe power came from being the loudest voice in the room," Margot continued. "Now I'm realizing it comes from knowing when to let someone else speak." Sophia said nothing. Then Margot added, almost offhandedly, "Candace told me once I'd die before mentoring another woman. She's probably gloating right now." "She is," Sophia said, smiling. "A little." Margot nodded toward the exit. "You should get some air. You've earned the view today." Sophia did just that. She took the back elevator to the rooftop, the quiet one, the place no one claimed but everyone retreated to when the office walls felt too tight. The sky was bruised purple and blue. A storm might be coming, or it might pass entirely. She sat on the same bench where Grace had once offered her lumpia and hard-won wisdom. Everything felt different now, but also familiar. And then she heard footsteps. Ethan. He didn't speak, just sat beside her, leaving a respectful gap. After a long pause, he said, "You didn't wear it today." She shook her head. "No." He pulled it from his pocket, carefully, like it was something sacred. The silver leaf caught the wind, then stilled. "I kept it in every meeting," he said. "Did it help?" He looked at her. "It reminded me why I started this company. Not for headlines or legacy, but to build something that made people feel seen." Sophia turned to him. "I'm not who you started with." "No," he said softly. "You're who reminded me why I started." Their eyes held. Longer this time. He opened his hand, offering the necklace back, but Sophia hesitated. "Keep it," she said, "until the next meeting." He closed his fingers around it. "Are you sure?" "I'm still figuring out who I am," she said, standing. "But I know one thing now. I don't need a necklace to remember." He smiled. But it was different this time. Not admiration, not apology, respect. As she turned to leave, he called out, "There's something I haven't said yet." She paused. "I know," she said quietly, "and I think I'm almost ready to hear it." It rained that morning, the kind of soft, steady rain that doesn't demand umbrellas, just a little patience and maybe a scarf. Sophia walked into the office without rushing, letting the drizzle kiss her sleeves. The sky was silver, calm, clean. Inside, the building buzzed like always, but she moved through it differently now, not ducking glances, not shrinking to the side. People said good morning, not out of politeness, out of respect. She didn't carry the necklace today either. It was time. Today, she'd stand without it. The leadership breakfast was held in the same room where she'd once spilled coffee and silently wished the floor would open. This time, the table had fresh flowers, real ones. As everyone settled in, Margot in charcoal gray, Candace in gold hoops and red lipstick, Ethan in a crisp dark jacket. Sophia sat down, not at the end, not in the middle, but right where she belonged, at the table. Ethan stood to open the meeting, clearing his throat. "I'll keep this brief," he said. "You've all seen the metrics. You've all read the reports, but I wanted to share something else." He looked directly at Sophia, then at everyone else. This company was built on strategy, yes, but it survives on people, on honesty, on those who speak even when they haven't been handed a microphone. A pause. He continued. "This year, the Lonsdale Initiative didn't just succeed. It became a blueprint, not because of funding or flashy partners, But because one employee, someone not even given a title yet, saw a community, listened, and gave them dignity. The room shifted, all eyes on Sophia. She held her breath. Ethan nodded toward her. And starting today, Sophia Alvarez is no longer a consultant or a support lead. She is the head of community impact, effective immediately. Gasps, applause, and one long, proud nod from Grace, who stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, smiling like someone watching her own daughter take flight. Candace let out a loud, "About time." Even Margot clapped, once, but it counted. Sophia stood slowly, stunned. She looked to Ethan. "You didn't tell me." "No," he said, voice low, "because you would have found a reason to say you weren't ready, and I needed you to see what we see." Applause filled the room. She bowed her head, not to shrink, but to let the moment soak in. After the meeting, Ethan found her in the hallway. She leaned against the wall, still trying to breathe normally. He handed her something. A small folded piece of cloth. She opened it. Inside was the necklace. But the leaf had been engraved now. Barely visible, but there. A single word. Voice. Sophia touched the charm gently. "You did this?" "I had it done last night." "Why?" "Because this necklace started as memory," Ethan said, "but I think it's become something else now, a mark of what you've claimed, not just what you've carried." Sophia looked up at him. "You never said what you wanted to tell me." He nodded, taking a step closer. Just close enough that she could feel the heat of him, even through the air. "I spent a long time being proud of this company," he said, "but the truth is, I was lonely inside it. I didn't even notice until you walked in, eyes wide, hands shaking, voice soft, but stronger than anyone else in the room." A pause. "You didn't ask to be seen, but I couldn't stop seeing you." Sophia didn't look away. He took a breath. "And I realized I don't want to build this future without you in it." Another breath. "And I don't mean as a title or a department head. I mean in it. With me." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't practiced. It was honest. "I don't need an answer," he added. "I just needed you to know." Sophia stepped closer, then reached up and fastened the necklace around her neck once more. "I needed to know I could stand without it," she said. "And now I know." She looked up at him. "I'm still figuring out what's next. But I know this much." He leaned in. "I'm not walking away," she whispered. Their foreheads nearly touched, and just as the air between them pulled tighter, a voice echoed from down the hall. "Don't make me interrupt a slow-burn romance for budget approvals. Candace." They laughed. The moment stayed. But it shifted from tension to possibility. That evening, Sophia walked home in the rain. No umbrella, no rush. The leaf around her neck gleamed beneath her collarbone. It felt warm now, not heavy. She passed the flower shop she used to avoid and paused. Inside, a little girl held a bouquet almost bigger than her. She looked up and saw Sophia through the window and smiled. Sophia smiled back. Behind her, someone called out, "Hey, Miss Alvarez!" She turned. It was Grace, holding a small bag of groceries. "You forgot your lunch in the fridge," Grace said. "Again." Sophia took it with a sheepish grin. "Some things don't change," Grace nodded. "And some things finally do." They stood there for a moment, two women from different worlds, sharing the same street, the same rain, the same pride. "I'm proud of you, Mija," Grace said. "Your mama would be, too." Sophia's eyes softened. "I know, I felt her today." They parted with a hug, quiet and firm. And as Sophia walked the last few blocks home, something in her heart settled. She wasn't the intern who fell. She wasn't the assistant with trembling hands. She was the woman who stood back up and was finally seen. 6 months later, it was a small celebration. No champagne toasts, no grand gestures. Just a rooftop dinner under soft string lights and a shy breeze, the kind of evening where truth could arrive quietly, like someone who knocks instead of barging in. They had gathered to celebrate the success of the Roots and Reach initiative, Sophia's community program. Her name was now in headlines she hadn't asked for, but this time she was ready. Candace gave a speech. Margot toasted with unexpected warmth. Grace showed up in florals and flat shoes, carrying a tray of homemade lumpia and enough pride to fill the room. But it was Ethan who said the least, because he was waiting. Later that night, after the laughter faded and the candles melted low, Ethan found her standing barefoot by the balcony. She was holding her heels in one hand, the wind tugging gently at her hair. Around her neck was the silver leaf necklace, catching the light with soft defiance. "You disappeared," he said. "I needed a minute," she replied, smiling. "Sometimes it still feels unreal." He walked beside her, careful not to break the moment. "I kept something," he said, pulling a small piece of folded paper from his jacket. "From our first presentation together." She opened it slowly. A simple phrase, handwritten in a dark ink. "You don't owe anyone an explanation for being noticed." Her throat tightened. "You kept this?" "I kept everything," Ethan said, "even the moments you thought didn't matter." Sophia stared at the note for a long beat, then looked up. "You never told me what you were holding back." He met her eyes, calm, open. "I didn't want to ask for anything from you," he said, "not until I knew you had everything that was already yours, your place. Your name, your voice." She blinked. "And now?" she asked. He reached into his other pocket, not for a ring, but for the necklace pendant she had once given him. The silver leaf he'd carried through every meeting, every turning point. But this time, there was something new. A second, smaller charm was attached to the chain, delicate, shaped like a tiny gold thread loop, engraved with a single word: stay. He looked at her. No kneeling, no audience, no pressure. Just the kind of ask that felt like truth, not tradition. "You wore this when you were still finding your voice," he said softly. "I'm asking you to wear it again, but now as my partner, in work, in life, in love." Sophia stared at the necklace, then at him, and for a moment the world felt perfectly still. She didn't cry, she didn't gasp, she smiled, the kind of smile that grows slowly, like trust. "I don't need grand promises," she said, "just real ones." Ethan nodded. "That's all I know how to make." She reached for the necklace, took it gently from his hand, and this time put it back on herself. The silver leaf, the golden thread, her mother's memory, her own future, all tied together. Then she stepped toward him, close enough that their foreheads almost touched. "I have one condition," she whispered. Ethan tilted his head. "Anything. Don't try to rescue me. I'm not lost anymore." His voice dropped. "I don't want to rescue you. I want to walk beside you." And then she kissed him. Not with hesitation, not with apology, but with every word she hadn't spoken in the boardroom. Every truth she'd carried quietly. The kiss wasn't an answer. It was a yes. Down the hallway, Candace leaned around the corner and smirked. "I knew they'd make it weirdly poetic," she muttered, walking off with a grin. Later, as they left the rooftop, Ethan offered to call a car. Sophia declined. "I want to walk." He walked with her. No titles, no labels, just them, two people in love who had learned the slow way that some yeses don't come with rings first, but with peace. As they passed the corner cafe where she once sat alone, Sophia paused. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "The day you fell?" he said. "No, the day I stopped hiding." He looked at her for a long time, then answered quietly, "That's the day I found everything I didn't know I needed." She smiled, not down, not away, but directly at him, and together they walked home. The end. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to reclaim your voice after being underestimated? What would you do if someone gave you both credit and love, but you had to choose which to accept first? Leave your thoughts in the comments, give this story a rating from 0 to 10, and hit like if Sophia's journey moved you. Until next time, see you in the next story.